First of all, Jonathan, thank you, and really to everybody that put this event together. I think the timing is amazing, and I know probably the amount of effort that went into making it a success. And from what I hear so far, it certainly has been. So thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. So I'm going to start like this. In 1999, I had the opportunity. I was a first-year associate at a law firm in Manhattan. And you ever hear the expression, I want to be like Mike, in reference to Michael Jordan? Well, as a first-year associate, I wanted to be like Murray Scala. Murray Scala, he was like the rainmaker, the deal guy. And I said, whatever it takes, I want to be like him. He's always whining and dining and going out to taking clients places. Fine. So I realized that this was how I was going to do it. Murray was a huge golf guy, and he flew all over the world. He went to Switzerland a couple times a year to play. I said, that's it. That's my ticket. I'm going to learn how to play golf. I'm going to go out on the course with him. We're going to become buddies, and I'm going to learn how to become a rainmaker. Well, it only took one golf lesson for me to figure out there's got to be another way. And that was the last time I touched the golf club, 1999. But it taught, I had to learn that there are other ways to become a rainmaker and to grow a business and to try to scale a company. And so what I'd like to accomplish today is really just talk about some practical takeaways that I think we can all benefit from. And I'm talking to myself as well. So just to give a little bit of perspective, though, to everybody who's just joined of sort of where I'm coming from, I'll just give you a little bit of background. So I used to be a securities attorney. Don't hold that against me. And I started a company with a good friend of mine, Shai Stern. And great story. I slept on my couch for like 8 months and, didn't really eat meals. And it was a company called Vintage Filings. And we, thank God, grew that company to about 4,000 publicly traded companies, about 100 employees. And within 5 years, we sold the company to a very large firm called PR Newswire. And at that point, something happened. I got a bug. A little bit of a bug that probably everybody on this call has, that entrepreneurial bug. It's like, okay, that was fun. Can we do that again? I like growing companies. And so we had a company that we started called V Corp, which was incorporating companies. And I want to stress, nothing I've ever done or am doing is by any means like exciting or sexy or different. It's all very mundane and corporate service type businesses. But we grew V Corp to about 10,000 customers, and then we were bought out by a large firm called Wolters Kluwer. And then today I spend my time juggling a firm called Vstock Transfer. We work with about 700 publicly traded companies, deal a lot with IPOs, and a firm called Vcheck, where we do background checks for private equity firms and venture capital firms. And so I'm mentioning all this as sort of an apology to you, because from what I've seen is that a lot of the presenters and speakers here today are real speakers and real presenters, and they're coaches, and they know how to mold the information to give over to you so that you'll be able to use it. I don't have any of that expertise. I'm a guy who's got a little bit of practical experience, and I'm hoping to give over some of the practical steps that we can learn from together.
If I may project, nothing speaks louder than practical experience. And
that's all I have to give. So with that being said, it's not so easy to follow the practical guidelines. So I'll give you an example. It's a little bit like going to the gym, I find. I have a very good friend of mine, the sweetest guy in the world, manages a very large IT company. And because he was successful for about 20 years, simply from referrals, he never really had to do any marketing or figure out how to scale or grow his company. So we sat down. He's like, I want to get to the next level, like really big. So, okay, let's come up with a game plan. And we talked about, marketing and LinkedIn and connecting and networking. And it was rah, rah, rah as soon as he left my office. And what I found is it's a little bit like me saying, okay, well, if you do this, this, and this, you're going to lose weight. You're going to get in shape and you're going to look awesome. But you actually have to go to the gym and do the sit-ups. And if you don't, nothing's going to happen. And sure enough, I don't think he went to the gym. I don't think he did any sit-ups. And his business is probably growing from the referrals. And so I encourage everybody that's out there to take from all the lessons of all the speakers, but you have to execute. You actually have to implement them. Okay. So if we were at a real conference, what I would be doing right now is I would say, by a show of hands, please tell me, how many of you have an idea for a business and you want to start a business? Versus, raise your hand, how many of you have a business and you're looking to scale and grow a business? But so, since I don't have the benefit necessarily of show of hands from everybody, we're going to touch on and sort of balance both elements. We'll touch on starting a company briefly, and then we'll really move into growth mode. So from time to time, I'm asked the question, what kind of business should I start? I want to be in business. I have the energy. What type of business should I start? So it's my personal opinion, belief, experience that you should sit back and just listen. Listen for problems that are going on within your house, your industry, the people that you're with. And there are two magic words that are going to stand out. I wish. If you hear that, your antennas should perk up and you say, I wish somebody did this. I wish there was a solution for that. And I've done it for myself. I wish that somebody would fix this. And those are the types of businesses that I find are the most successful, because it's not a luxury item where, oh, it would be nice to have that. It's a pain point. And if you can solve and plug up a pain point, those are the types of businesses that people have to have. And that's a great place to start. But it's not enough, because many people who I've spoken to, have heard me speak, I have a big takeaway line. And that is that not every great idea makes money. You can have a phenomenal idea, but you have to do your homework and make sure that it's a type of business that can end up being profitable. I've had businesses that were amazing and people are like, oh, I love it. But time comes to sign up and swipe the credit card and you hear crickets, nothing going on. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be profitable. So those are the two things to look out for. But assume you have all that covered. Now you're looking to go into growth mode. About 20 years ago now, my wife and I were looking for our first house. I'm not a picky guy. I only had 3 small requests. Here's what they were. I'd like not to go into debt over the house. I'd like not to live on a busy street. And I'd like not to live on a corner. Those were my pet peeves. Not too much to ask for. I went a little bit into debt. It was on a bit of a busy street, and it definitely was on a corner house. Okay, it was the first house. Similarly, when I started my first business, and even the businesses that I'm in now, I'm not a picky person. 3 small requests. I'm not going into a business that has these 3 things. I don't want it to be highly regulated. I don't want it to be a small ticket item, $50 here, $25 there, $75 there. And I don't want to be in sales. Well, everything I do is highly regulated with the SEC or different compliance issues. Most of my services are small ticket items, and it's based on volume. And everything that I do is sales. And I've come to embrace it and accept it. And that's what I am asking each and every person here today to sort of adopt. That it doesn't matter if you're in construction, if you're in tech, if you're in pharma, you are in sales. Okay? And if you're not, you need to be. Meaning, every company, when you're starting out, or even if you're trying to go into sort of growth mode, you have to look at yourself as if you're a media company. And jot that down. I am a media company. No matter what industry you are in, first and foremost, you're a media company. And then secondly, you do whatever it is that you do. And it's not easy to be a media company, because you need to train yourself to look at your daily routine in a certain way, whether it's the people that you're speaking to or the content that you're looking for. And there's some very high-level CEOs that struggle with this ability to view themselves as a media company. I had it was a couple of years ago, I had the CEO of a biotech company, great guy, good friend. And I was trying to nudge him a little bit. Like, you've got so much going on. He's like, no, not so much. I'm like, what are you doing this week? So he thinks, he's like, I have a board meeting. Not so exciting. Okay. Well, tell me, where's the board meeting? He's like, yeah, okay. Maybe it's exciting. Yeah, I'm going to Italy. I said, okay, your board meeting's in Italy? It's like, yeah, one of the board members has a house in the Alps and we go there every year. I'm like, that's a little bit newsworthy. I bet you could probably get a pretty good post on LinkedIn if you show yourself at a board meeting in the Alps in Italy. And he just didn't even think, it didn't even dawn on him to think that way. And the kicker is that when he got back, I'm like, okay, can you send me those pics? I'd love to see them. He's like, oh yeah, I probably should have taken some pictures. Like, they just don't, you're not trained that way. So it's important to train yourself to become a media company. Because for all you accountants out there and number guys, I'm not a numbers guy, but you know, like when you look at the P&L sheets and you look at all your assets, one of the greatest assets that you could have is the attention of your customers or potential customers. That attention is priceless, because once you have it, then you can upsell them, you can bring them different products. Attention is key. So you've got your idea, you've got your company, you know how to view yourself as a media company. But you also need to sort of learn how to tell your story. Everybody here on this chat, on this Zoom, everybody knows about getting your elevator pitch tight, right? You've got 30 seconds. What's your pitch? What are you trying to accomplish? What's your value add? But I would encourage you to also develop storytelling, because besides just the pitch, potential clients or investors or joint venture folks, people that you want to surround yourself with, they don't just want the 30-second pitch anymore. They want to hear the story behind it. They want to know, like, tell me something that's going to make me remember you. Just a very, very simple, silly story is that when I started that first company with my partner, it was called Vintage Filings. And we didn't do a focus group on what name we should do or really spend weeks coming up with strategy. When we met at his dining room, there was a bottle of vintage seltzer on the table. And we said, Vintage Filings. Okay, great. And there was no domain available for Vintage Filings. There was only V Filings. And so that's what we went with. And because, thank God, that first venture was successful, we stayed with V Corp and Vcheck and Vstock. But people always talk to me about the seltzer story, because it's a little bit of storytelling that's not necessarily pushing your services down their throat, but it gives them a little bit of background and insight. So now you've got some customers. Let's talk about how to keep them and how to develop them, because that is going to be part of growth through referrals and through reputation.
It's funny. One of the points that the keynote speaker, Brian Scudamore from Gut Junk, and Roy Williams were talking about was how everybody remembers Brian's story because he started at a McDonald's. And
right.
When people see him, they recognize that. And like Roy said, he says it's all about storytelling today. Anywhere you go, any social media platform, all people are doing all day long is telling their story. That's all.
That's it. That's it. It's a big buzzword, but at the same time, it's so critical. It really is. And so you want to storytell to get those customers. So now you've got them. At the end of the day, you want to distinguish yourself. And so there are two key words that I'm going to give to you that are so simple, but I can't tell you how important they are. And the two key words are got it. Just got it. What do I mean? I make it my business that no matter what email anybody sends to me, business related, I reply, got it. A WhatsApp, got it. An email, got it. A text, got it, received, thanks, I'll handle it. And it's so simple. You're like, what's the big deal? Because it takes something off of their plate. It shows that you're responsive. It shows that you care. And if nothing else, it's a sort of dialogue, because then they may respond, thanks. Oh, by the way, how's your weekend? What's going on? It's a very small way to create a relationship. But again, going back to that got it part, I have service providers where I'll send them something. I need them to take care of it. It's really important. And they don't reply in that fashion. And so because I'm a little bit, whether I'm distrustful of them or because it's so important to me that this gets done, as soon as I send that email, I calendar for myself the next morning, follow up with so-and-so to make sure that he got it, because he didn't reply. And again, that doesn't mean he didn't get it. But if you reply, got it, received, you're doing me such a favor. You're taking something off my plate that I don't have to deal with tomorrow because I know it's being handled. So that's a very important element. And when you do that, it opens up the door for you to establish relationships, closer relationships with clients. And I think at the end of the day, whether you're calling it sales, relationships are really what it's all about. I want to give you two quick examples of where relationships will not only save your business, but really help you grow your business. This has to be about probably about 15 years ago. One of my sales guys was cultivating a relationship with, I think it was a very high level attorney. And she was getting married and she went off on her honeymoon. And one day we're in the office and he gets a postcard and it's from this attorney in the French Riviera. And it's just like, oh, hey, just checking in. Hope all is well. Insignificant. And I look at him. I'm like, Michael, do you realize what you have here is gold? He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, this attorney is on her honeymoon on the beach in the French Riviera, and she's thinking about her sales rep at Vintage Filings. That's how tight you are. That's how close that relationship is. Do you think she's ever going to go to another provider who's trying to solicit her business? No way. Great job in cultivating that relationship. And those same things can save that opportunity with you and your clients. The other day, a board member who I'm somewhat close with and or I'm trying to become closer with, he said, Seth, I got to tell you a funny story. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, the board was giving me a hard time today. You know, they were looking at some of your bills and your invoices and they were, saying we should look elsewhere. And I told them, no way, I'm not going to anybody else but Seth. Like, that made me feel great because it wasn't about, the lowest cost provider. What it showed me, it was about the relationship, and it showed me that's what counts, is that's what's going to keep the customers. And so really always take the extra time to focus on the relationships.
You touched on a very sensitive point over there because there's a distinction between sales and relationships, right? Sales is you out there passionate, promoting your product, your service, whatever the case is. But the relationship is you concerned about moving other people forward, moving other people ahead, putting their needs first, understanding their needs, getting them. And like that employee who just called up her salesperson, her team when she was on vacation, shows that individual that their needs come first. They're Absolutely. Top of mind. And Absolutely. That's a relationship. That's giving to somebody. And the mix of both, the passion, the motivation of promoting your product and service, combined with focusing so much on wanting to help another person in front of you, and it's a win-win situation.
That's it. And so you've got that relationship in place while you're selling, but now comes the exciting part for everybody on this chat. The trick is really, how do you sit back, in theory, not necessarily sit back, and have the sales and the revenue come to you, right? We're in this time of COVID where, and I'm not really touching on that topic because I don't have like the next big pivot or the next big idea, but I do have some suggestions. Again, nothing I'm saying is rocket science, but in terms of just taking advantage of some of the downtime that you have and putting it to good use, to the point where your business can literally grow by sitting back and not having to go out and hunt for new business. And it's about making introductions. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge fan of that book called The Go-Giver. I'm not going that way. That's a whole separate discussion. There's a book out there called The Go-Giver. I highly recommend it. But it's about looking at your audience and seeing who can you mix and match that you can be providing value. And if you do that enough times where you make introductions to people, and it doesn't have to be an introduction, let me clarify that, where you can add value for people that you are trying to develop a relationship with. So if there's some high-priced securities attorney that's charging $1,500 an hour, let's be realistic. It's not likely that I'm going to be able to bring him a client that's going to be, paying him $1 million, $1.5 million. It could happen, but it's not easily done. But what else can I bring to people that will be valuable to them? So you can, each of you within your own industry, send them an article that touches on a topic that you've spoken to them about, that that they're interested in. Send them an article about their community, something that's going on there, about conferences that are coming up. Let's say somebody that is in startup mode and you were talking about different ways to do that, and you sent them a link to this conference. They're appreciative of it. So now they sort of feel not indebted to you, but hey, you know what? You really care about me. You went out of your way to try to get me some information. I appreciate that. But the trick is, and this is not easy, you have to give without any expectation in return. In other words, if you're going to make that introduction, hey, I made an introduction, I'm going to wait for you to send one back next week. First of all, it'll never happen. And second of all, you're going to be extremely disappointed because most of the time it does not. When it does, it's a pleasant surprise. And I post about this sometimes on LinkedIn, to the point where somebody saw it and he said, well, I guess I need to call you more often for referrals. I'm like, no, you need to call me less often and maybe just make one introduction for me. And that's how I'll remember you more. And so there are people out there that sometimes say, oh, well, I'll pay you a referral fee. So let's make introductions and then I'll pay you a commission. This is my opinion, is that you do what you do and you do it well, and you should get paid for it. I do what I do well, and I like to get paid for it. And I'm a big believer, I don't know if the word is karma, but as long as we're all doing what we do well, it'll come back and we'll all get taken care of. I don't need to sit there splitting hairs on commissions for what people are paying you. And so I never look to do that. What I do is I just look to make introductions as often as I can or provide value as often as I can. So I would guess that many people at the conference today are avid LinkedIn users. So I know there have been many experts on LinkedIn, so I'm not going to touch on that. I just wanted to bring out one or two points that I found were extremely helpful in getting new business. People sometimes say to me, not in a negative way, just in a observatory way, you have a whole bunch of different types of content. Like one day you're posting a cartoon, the next day it's a podcast, and the next day it's something extremely serious, and that's by design. I try to do different things as often as I can, and here are the reasons why. And think about if this works for you. Number one, it's fun, right? I mean, it keeps me, at least what I think in my own world, to be creative. Whether or not anybody else thinks it's creative, I have no idea, but I enjoy it. But to the point where clients have sent me messages literally with the following sentence: you look like you're having fun and it would be fun to work with you. Send me a proposal on your services. Doesn't get more exciting than that. If you look like you're having fun, people might want to work with you. And that translates into not just LinkedIn, but in life in general and in the office here. I'm pointing to the secretary. I've had it where companies have said, I'm ready to sign up with you. There's one lawyer. And I said, John, I've been chasing you for 5 years to get a deal with you. Now you're coming to me? He said, listen, I called your office the other day. I just needed some information. And the lady that answered the phone was so pleasant and so helpful. And she seemed so content to be working at your firm. It must be a good firm to work at. I'm ready to give you a shot. So people are attracted to that type of spirit environment. The second reason that I try to post different content and I encourage you to experiment with different things is because different people relate to different types of content on different days even. Yesterday I had a wedding in Lakewood, and a podcast was the recipe for getting through that 2-hour drive. Other days, if I'm busy and I don't have time to read a long post, if somebody's doing just a one sentence, I might absorb that type of content. Other days I'm having a tough day, a little bit of humor is great, et cetera, et cetera. So different ways to connect to people by experimenting with different types of posts. But the last thing is to always make sure to get the message across of what you actually do. I mean, it's great to be creative, but if you're missing the point of what it is you actually do for a living and what you want people to hire you for, you've missed the boat. And I've gotten that message, delivered to me pretty hard a couple of times over the years, where I got a call from a guy and he said in the neighborhood, he says, you seem really successful and you're busy on LinkedIn, and do you mind if we schedule a call? I'd like to pick your brain on a couple things. And we got on the call and I said, how can I help? He's like, yeah, you seem successful. Like, I don't know what you do, but I'd like to find out, how I do this and that. And it's just like, that's a punch in the gut. Like, no matter how many times you say what it is you do, you're not saying enough. that people need to know exactly what it is that you want them to hire you for. So on a high level, those are some items that I think that they could be helpful for you. If you haven't found any of those to be helpful, then I would just go back and suggest that you try to play golf. That's something that can always work.
I can attest to your variety of posts on LinkedIn because I do follow you and we are connected, and you are very intentional about posting about your businesses, about what you do, and you do it in a great way by showcasing the close relationships you have with your clients. In not just in closing deals and talking about trying to brag about I did this or I closed that, but it's more about saying, hey, I closed the deal with this company, but you need to know about this company. You need to know about these people. These people, this is what they're doing. This is what they're bringing to the world. And when you do something like that, you're showing that you have a relationship. Again, it comes back to that relationship piece with people. So there is a humility aspect to it. There is just a good vibe to it altogether. And people at the same time get to see what you do. You're successful at what you're doing, and they're liking it. They're loving it. And even though you think it's boring, I can tell you from an audience's perspective, it's not. It's actually entertaining. It's good. It's informative. People get to know, different people, different companies we deal with.
Yeah. And what's, each person may think that their business to themselves is not that exciting. But you know what? The measurement of what's exciting and what people can learn from varies so much from person to person that there may be many, many people out there that find what you do, regardless of that industry, extremely exciting. So, so those are some of the takeaways I think that I wake up every day and I try to remind myself to do to be able to scale the businesses that I'm involved with. And I would strongly encourage, people to actually execute on some of these items as well, as simple as they may be. That's sort of the beauty of it, is that they're really simple, but at the same time, sometimes those are the most challenging to stick with. So.
Yeah. And I remember in our talk prior to this event, I commented about how you have a business model and a strategy that's timeless because you're focusing on the right elements, right? Regardless of what's going on. But I'm sure some of the listeners here are still itching and dying to know, what are you doing during this COVID-19 period, post-COVID-19? How are you planning around it? How are you dealing with your customers? How are you still staying relevant in their eyes and generating business and securing yourself and your future moving forward? I mean, it's challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's challenging. Of course, it depends on the business, right? So I have one business that's absolutely tanked, like revenue just fell off the cliff. Others are sort of hovering depending on the industry, and I'm sure everybody feels it to a different extent. I think that all we can do right now is try to develop relationships. I've spent this time trying to develop new relationships. Really just take the time, of course, take one section of the day or one segment of the last couple of weeks and just really cultivate the existing relationships that you have, because now is a fantastic time to do that, especially since I had spent a lot of time going to conferences and sponsoring conferences and trying to come up with creative ways to leverage those events, which haven't happened and probably won't happen for many more months. And so, events like the ones we're doing today are fantastic, but really getting to know people and taking advantage of the Zoom opportunities. There's nothing now like planting seeds, because I think that some of us, myself included, like we have some IPOs, initial public offerings, that are working. And you wake up one day and you're like, oh, wow, I can't believe these guys went public in the middle of all this. Well, then I remind myself, they didn't go public in the middle of all this. They went public, but they spent the last 6 months planting seeds and developing and dealing with all the issues that surround it so that it can look like they had this overnight success. And so if the game plan, whatever the rules dictate, is that we'll be able to have face-to-face meetings again, in July or August, whenever it is, you're not going to be able to just wake up one day and say, okay, I'm back, game on. If you want to have meetings in July with new people, you need to make those connections today, literally today. You connect today, You let the content breathe over the next couple of days. You'll reach out again over the next couple of days. You'll have a first call in another week or two. Then you'll be able to have that first coffee or that first lunch in July and August. So I'm just really trying to plant as many seeds as I can in terms of relationships and new opportunities.
That's amazing. You're farming, you're not harvesting. It's great.
Well said. Very well said.
Okay. We're trying to see if there are any questions from the audience. Give them a chance to speak. If anybody has a question, please shoot it in the chat or in the Q&A. We would love to hear them. We still have almost 30 people in this session, so that's great.
Okay, great. And I'll just say along those lines, during this downtime, and if anybody has a question, I'd absolutely love to hear it if I can answer it. But very often we feel like if we're posting on LinkedIn and we're not getting necessarily the views that we're expecting or the interactions, different businesses and frankly different people and different content bring out different responses. I happen to not be a person that gets a lot of engagement, but I might get a lot of views, and other people have tremendous views. It depends on the type of audience that you're developing. But regardless, I think it's important to always remember that people are watching you. Even if they're not engaging with you. Two quick examples. Last summer, I was in Israel, and I was out with the family. Taking out another family, it was like 15 of us at a restaurant, and a gentleman comes over to me, and I had no idea what he was going to ask me. And he's like, I just want you to know, I love your content on LinkedIn. I'm like, what? Like, here we are in the middle of Israel. He's like, yeah, I'm in New York. I'm a partner at such and such firm, which was a huge firm. And he was like a big guy. And I was just blown away. And it was such a reminder. Like, I didn't even know I was connected to him. He never said a word. We've never messaged each other, but they're out there. And, even 2 weeks ago, I posted a list, again, just trying to push out value. I said, by the way, for any company that's looking to raise money, here's a list of 15 investment banking firms you might want to call. I thought it was harmless. All of a sudden, I get a call from two investment banking firms. Hey, I'm not on the list. I'm like, I didn't even know you look at I didn't even know you look at my posts. I didn't even know anything. They're like, yeah, we want to be on the list. And I literally had to go in and edit it because you don't know who's watching. So even if you feel like you're in your own little world and nothing's going on, just stick with it. Stuff is happening.
People should know this little fact that the majority of LinkedIn members are what we call lurkers. They don't comment, they don't like, they don't do anything, they just watch. They scroll through the feeds, and they remember if you make a lasting impression. I think Ezra Fireworker MBA says, Seth, how do you gauge marketing costs, indirect costs, percentage on events compared to gross revenue on, say, a semi-annual basis?
Great question, Ezra. So you've got the word cost, percentages, gross revenue. I'm guessing accounting. Okay. The answer is that probably to a fault, I don't have it down to a science. Again, I would imagine every business is different. I am, and Ezra, I think you know my partner, Shai. We have always been very big advocates of spend on the conference circuit. Two examples of which, many years ago, we invested really heavily, and we flew out different celebrities to stand with us at our booths for the day. And this way we had a long line of people, everybody wanted to take pictures with them. And then what really sort of put us on the conference map, again, nothing rocket science, is we were known as the popcorn guys. Many years ago, Isaiah Thomas had a popcorn company called Dale & Thomas Popcorn. And we brought that to every conference, all different flavors, varieties. And it was sort of comical. You would have these CEOs of big public companies, and there was a long look. Our competitors are handing out stress balls on one side, and they're handing out pens on the other side. We're handing out popcorn with branded bags, and there was a long line of CEOs, And then throughout the conference, you see CEOs walking around with chocolate dripping off their mouth and their shirts are all dirty, to the extent where the following year we had to hand out little baby wipes as well. And then, but again, it's all about the business, right? So if we follow up and our sales guys call up and we're like, oh, we want to talk to you about your SEC filings, not so interested. Oh, yeah, we were the popcorn guys at the conference. Oh, I love that. That was awesome. You've got to decide if investing at these events is worthwhile for you. We found that it was. Can you always measure exactly the return on investment? Probably not. The same way, can you actually measure 100% the ROI on investing in social media? Probably not, but you know when it's working.
I think the key is that you planted a memorable seed at that event, right? And that's really what hits home, because people remember you for it.
That's it. Absolutely.
And it doesn't cost a lot. That's the beauty of it, right? It's a small, tiny investment.
Right. The celebrities are a little bit spoiled, but the popcorn was okay.
Okay. So tell me, I'll ask you a question, being that, you have a few companies, you clearly have several employees working for you. How are you coping in growing your business and just in your day-to-day operations with this COVID-19 situation? How are you keeping the atmosphere and the culture still alive? Obviously you clearly have a strong culture based on, deep-rooted relationships with your employees. People are happy to work, for you within the company, happy to service people. How do you maintain that cohesiveness when you have, all this isolation happening all around?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, in that there's no right way to do it, because I think every company will have their own culture to start with. And so what we've been fortunate is that our entire business was able to be virtual. I've got 30 computers and desks and cubicles and offices out here, but yet you see everybody. It's sort of eerie, actually. You see people logging in and working on their screens, but you still want to keep that like you said, that connectivity. And so we do hold Zoom calls, mandatory to turn on I shouldn't say the word mandatory, encouraged to turn on your video so that we can actually see people and reconnect. We're starting to prepare for the return and trying to just be proactive, putting ourselves, I think that's the best thing we could do, is put ourselves in their shoes. Some people are more fearful than others. They have other family concerns, and you just have to do the best you can to be sensitive, because at the end of the day, I'm a very big believer that the company that you build is by surrounding yourself with the right types of people. I mean, it's, just to veer from the COVID question, but we're talking about employees and we're talking about environment. I mean, it's comical that I run a stock transfer agency, and hopefully none of my clients are on here, but I don't know how to transfer stock. I run a background check company, and I don't know, other than Googling somebody, I don't know how to run a background check. I did know how to do an Edgar filing when we first started. But the key is that if you have an idea and a vision for business and you want to scale it, you have to execute. And the most important part of that execution is surrounding yourself really with quality people that can do the things that you can't. So that you can shine and really do what you can. So, you want to make sure that everybody around you that you've hired to execute on those different talents is happy, satisfied, is comfortable when they come back, because that's going to translate that feeling, no matter if they're feeling anxious or if they're feeling comfortable or they're feeling excited to be back. You can be sure that is going to translate to the clients if they end up interacting with clients. And that will have an impact on business.
That's great leadership and great advice, Seth. Really.
We'll see how it plays out in a few weeks. We'll come back and we'll say, all right, how did that work? But
I'm sure it's going to work. You have, like I said, you have a strong culture embedded in your company. You seem to have, a good and strong leadership role with the people around you, and that comes from a place, like speakers like Simon Sinek keep saying all the time, right? Empathy, deploy empathy. Care about the person that's in front of you. You're not dealing with a number. You're not dealing with a cost. You're dealing with a human being. You're dealing with another person. They have problems. They have issues. They have life happening around them. And unless you can deploy that towards somebody, it's very hard for them to then reciprocate, right?
Absolutely.
But when you do such a thing and you have this type of leadership, and like I said, it's timeless. And regardless of what's happening, at the end of the day, your employees clearly know that they can count on you, and vice versa, and you can count on them. And
We try.
Great formula. Okay, amazing. Unbelievable. Trying to see if there's anybody else who wants to ask any questions. I think it's a great opportunity. Please, people, chime in. Okay, so I'll kick in with one more question, maybe.
Okay.
How do you balance it all out, right? All these companies, all these employees, all these stressful events happening. How do you do it? Personal life, right? All the people that depend on you, the companies, the clients. It's clearly not a simple thing, right? It's not running a mom and pop shop.
I will let you know when I figure it out. No. Well, I would divide that into two parts. The first part about the responsibility of people relying on you is one that I take extremely seriously, and anybody that's starting a company or that runs a company should. And when you're about to scale and grow and hire, that's something to really think about. I was terrified to hire my first employee ever. And I probably slept on my couch an extra 3 or 4 months working myself to the bone because I was afraid to make that next step of hiring somebody. Because that responsibility of, well, if it doesn't work out, I've got to come up with a paycheck for them. And it was even more so because the first person that we were looking to hire was somebody that was really talented to the extent we wanted them to leave their current position. So then it's like twice as bad if it doesn't work out, because not only, won't it be a great route for them, but we've asked them to give up something that they were comfortable with. So I take it very I take that as a huge responsibility. And it doesn't matter whether it's from 0 to 1 or from 60 to 62. Every hire, you have to put that thought and effort into it. Is it the right fit and things like that? In terms of the balance, people have, asked like this question, how do you juggle, how do you have the energy to juggle so many companies? And the answer is that I'm glad that I have the energy to juggle so many companies. I don't know at this stage of the game, if I only had one thing to focus on all day, every day, I wouldn't be able to sit. I was a pretty good student, actually. I was like one of those guys in the front of the class taking notes always. But and I had a lot of patience, but somehow over the years, I've just ADD kicked in, and I just need to be working on a couple things at all times. And I'm always, I fall asleep at night. As many people, I'm sure, on this chat have the same problem that I do. What else can I be doing? What else can I be? And not just in business, just whether it's in life in general. How else can I be growing? What else should I be doing? How can I bring more value to my family, my community, my businesses, whether it's products or services? So trying to balance things is not really my question. It's like, what else can I add to the chaos?
Amazing. It reminds me of a story I heard once of this man who came over to the Lubavitcher Rebbe a long time ago, and he told him, I have 7 projects under my plate. Somebody approached me with an 8th one, and I have no time, and I don't know what to do, and I was even thinking about letting one go, and I'm coming to see you to ask you for advice. So which one should I let go? And he said to him, not only you shouldn't let go of anything, you should add another project on top of it.
Right.
And he said to him, what's the logic behind it? So he said to him, if I give you a box and you fill it up with 50 bricks inside, that's the capacity that he has. And I tell you, you need to squeeze in another brick. How are you going to do it? So he says, if you apply enough pressure on the bricks, what happens to matter? It'll break apart into smaller pieces.
Right.
If you leave room for more to come in. And he says it's the same principle in life. Don't think you don't have time. Don't think you're too busy. Don't think about these things. When you get that presented to you, it's an opportunity for you to be able to do more, because you could do more. And the more you do, the more you realize how much you have ability to be able to do and time on your plate to do it.
Absolutely.
And that combined with surrounding yourself with the right people, which is what you're doing, I think is, again, Win-win formula.
Try. You know, you talk about taking on new things, and there are some people in business that have a certain goal, and once they hit that goal, they're okay and they're satisfied. And that comes down to, from a business standpoint, there are many CEOs or entrepreneurs that are very focused on the mechanics, whether it's projections and budgets, and that's probably the proper way to do it. I haven't yet found how to do that, and so for me, it's just, you know, go, and every day you try to hit 120%. And so, you know, probably the only goal setting that we've ever done is, at the beginning we said, okay, well, when we hit 25 clients, because what the first company we moved into, the accommodations were horrific. You know, the first one was just a tiny office. People worked on the floor many times. And the second one, we said, all right, well, when we hit 25 clients, we'll paint the walls. When we hit 50 clients, we'll redo the carpet. And when we hit 100 clients, maybe we'll move. And so, you know, fortunately, we hit those targets. We never did the carpet. We never did the walls. And, you know, ultimately we ended up moving. But you've got to set little goals for yourself, but never be afraid to take on more and keep striving for bigger and better things.
Amazing. This was an amazing talk, Seth. If there's anything you feel you can leave off the audience with in terms of words of wisdom before we end this chat.
Words of wisdom. Just give. You know, anybody you meet, see how you can help them. And in business, it will come back to you.
Amazing. Seth, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. You being here, you added tremendous value to this day, to people, to this event, and we hope to see you again in organizing a future event and more.
All right, fantastic. I'm going to check out the real speakers now.
Okay.
All right. Have a great day.
All the best.
Bye,
Take care. Bye.